Brown versus Board of Education, 1950, I don't remember, 56? Integrating the schools in the United States?
His child had to walk, very, very far and take buses to go to schools when really 7 blocks away there was a very good school, but that only white children could go to.
I know it was about discrimination.
In the South, it really didn't go over that well.
I think there was fear because it was going to be something new. And when there's something new, there's always fear.
Society might be integrated, but a lot of the institutions are still segregating us.
Yes. As much as people, I think, like to believe that everybody's equal and, try and make it real in their minds, I don't think it is at all.
Now it's not, you're not judged by the color of your skin, you judge what's in your heart or how you feel and if you're smart or if you really mean to others.
The real change comes with people's perceptions and in people's minds.
There's a long way to go, and I'm not sure that it's just a matter of another step forward in the same way, because we may have gone as far as we can with just this particular way of going about it. But there may have to be some creative thinking to find another mechanism to get it working, because we may have kind of arrived at a brick wall here.
I think that equality is achievable. It's just that people have to work for it. They can't be lazy about it. They can't just assume that other people are going to do it. They have to sort of seek it out.
There is a lot of work to be done, but it's not nearly, of course, like it was 50 years ago.
I think the biggest problem, honestly, that people face right now is not knowing their own worth. Not knowing who they are and what they have to give.
I think one of the greatest challenges for young black women is just a sense of identity and purpose.
Growing up, I happen to have had an absolutely outstanding education. I grew up on Westbury, Long Island, and at that time, because I was born in 1955, at that time, I remember when I was 9 years old, 63, when Kennedy was shot, I was in a predominantly white school. So we had been ushered in, but it was a very open neighborhood, very flexible, very accepting neighborhood where I was, and we were given, because of that, an excellent education. I lived in an area that was integrated. There was an area in Westbury, Long Island, called Newcastle that was predominantly black, and they had different schools in that area that were predominantly black, and a lot of the education, although it was good, was not as good as it was in the Westbury public school system, even though it was considered part of Westbury. But because you had still the idea that African Americans or people of color couldn't learn, they weren't putting as much into those schools, those books, weren't hiring the greatest teachers for those particular areas, although there were excellent academic advisors in those schools and teachers. It was not quite on par with the Westbury school system where I went. Although Brown versus Board of Education opened up the doors, we are still light years away from equality and good education.
Fortunately, I personally had great teachers and people who cared. I did experience some situations where people didn't care, and in school it wasn't important, and it was, if I go, I go, if I don't, I don't, if I learn, I learn, if I don't learn, I don't learn. So those type of things made me want to learn. Sometimes I found through peers that it made them not want to learn. They decided, this is something I don't want to do. No one cares, so why should I? So for me, it made me want to care. I remember in 8th grade, I had a teacher who said, what I tell you here will be what you use for the rest of your life. And I found that to be interesting. And I decided, I believe at that point, that I want to teach somebody else that, because that's important. If you tell somebody something, they're going to carry it with you. So at that point, I believe I decided I wanted to teach.
With the disintegration of the family, there are a lot of families that are single family, a lot of families that are, even though two parents are there, they're working 80, 90 hours a week, so they're not there for their children. They're not able to provide love and affection and attention. They might be able to provide money and things, but they're not able to provide what our children really need. And then families that don't have both parents, or families that don't have strong individuals in the household, are lacking the same types of things. They're lacking the attention, the children are lacking love, and it transcends to education, where the educational system, our young people are not prepared to learn because they've got so many social issues going on because of the disintegrating families.
Man, we face so much. It's ridiculous. I mean, in school, at home, just life in general, out public, everything.
Sometimes when you want to achieve something, you might have to work twice as hard than other people, just because maybe that you're a girl, or maybe that just because you're black.
A lot of challenges the girls face are really just challenges that are in the media, that the media portray. For example, that females have to dress skimpy and we have to look like a size 2 model, you know, blue eyes, blonde hair, whatever, to be pretty, to be successful in life, and that's not true.
I wanted to, instead of being a part of the problem, because we are, as adults, a part of the problem, I wanted to be a part of the solution. And because I enjoy physical fitness, which is a big part of what Got It Going On Foundation is about, leadership, public speaking, and just being able to deal with life on life's terms, but also having fun, having faith in yourself, and being focused, I wanted to do it in a way that girls could come together, be in a comfortable, safe place, talk about what they were going through, learn some accurate information. There's a lot of inaccurate information that our young ladies have out there, our young men as well. But I wanted to have a safe place where they could have fun, learn, and be empowered, so that they could go out there and do it for their families, communities, and their neighborhoods. In the empowerment program, they're 13 to 16, and the hip-hop fitness team, 13 to 17. But they're girls from all backgrounds, come from church, 2 family homes, 1 family homes, court-appointed, adjudicated youth. So they run the gamut, but they're girls that are interested in living better lives. Some of them come here, most of them come here kicking and screaming because somebody sent them, but they end up staying because they're interested in what we're doing, but most of all, they're interested in making an investment in themselves, and they get charged when they leave here.
I have gotten a lot out of this program. Just as far as trying to change the image of what the media has portrayed for young women, and the way that, you know, just kind of representative, I'm a representative for my people as a black African American young woman, and just being a positive influence on other people as well as myself, having high self-esteem. And that's just a lot, like with Miss Janice, Miss Tennille, Miss Stacy, and just everybody, just being around everybody has really impacted me.
I know they have a lot of challenges for them to go a different way, but I think Janice is trying to make them realize that there's more out in life than just running around in the street and doing their own thing right now. Because later on in life, it will catch up with them, I would say. And she is trying to steer them in the right direction. And I'm grateful for that.
I am a single mom, and I wanted to put her in an environment where she could be lifted up. I wanted her in a positive environment.
Got It Going On seemed to have the self-esteem and career, not so much career, but confidence building skills that she was looking for. Also wanted to get her involved with other teenagers, other girls, see different aspects of life, different how other teenagers are striving to excel in today's society.
Leadership program for girls, and it has made such a big difference. She is more confident in herself, and she is prepared to, well, she likes taking more risk now.
It's been a very positive impact on my daughter's life. I think that just working with other girls, having the opportunity to know that teamwork means something, whether it's at your age as a youth or when you get to adulthood, it makes a big difference. Sometimes girls don't understand that participating in sports or any activity where it involves more than one person coming together.
I see Garikonon as a big part of education, and how I see it as a tool that provides girls with skills, life skills. So it's educating them about how to deal with everything from their self-esteem, building it, physical fitness, nutrition, what do I do when I'm stressed out, how to handle those situations, social skills for the hip-hop generation, not just what fork and knife to use, but how to be kind, how to deal with people when I'm in public, you know, when I'm in society, and how to better my expressions and my entrance into society, how to deal with staying out of harm's way, how to deal with saying no. You can't just say no to drugs. How do I deal with that peer pressure? How do I deal with not having sex before marriage? How do I deal with staying out of a gang or, you know, violence? And then also down to how you dress, grooming, hygiene. We teach all those skills so that young people have a wide variety of tools to use for them.
Girls need attention. Not only girls, boys too, but I focus on girls because they determine our future. Girls are the ones who will reproduce our future, literally. So it's important that you empower them with positive things. You strengthen them with good education, real education, true education, and let them know that they have the power. It's right in their hands. Whatever they learn now is what they will use in the future to give back themselves. So if they can see positive people and see people who do care, then they'll grow up to be women who care and give back as well.
Educate. Educate yourself on how to make the difference when you get through, to make some difference, a difference.
The community needs to be very involved, more involved than they have been in education.
I think segregation still exists today because even though we have certain opportunities that are allowed us, education, financial opportunities, economic opportunities, there's still an invisible fence, an invisible line that's drawn. Even though we can enter different communities, we can work at certain places, we can live in certain neighborhoods, we can go to certain schools in those neighborhoods, but there's still this invisible line. This is West Baltimore. West Baltimore is very close. It's sort of a lucrative sort of spot, actually, because it is no more than 10 to 5 minutes from downtown, which is kind of, sort of ironic in a way also, that just 5 or 10 minutes from downtown, where the hotels and the restaurants and ESPN zone and that kind of thing is some of the harshest poverty and crime on the East Coast.
The people that was on drugs, that's where they come at, and it be drugs and stuff all the way up and down the street, like down there, down here. It's a corner house right here that sell drugs. And the police was around here a couple of days ago. Somebody got shot and killed on this street. And they don't know who did it, but it's real bad around here. And it's a corner store right there. It's closed up now, but they used to sell drugs and candy out of there. And this way I gotta live at.
Roughly from Frederick Douglass High School, out of a class of 150 or thereabouts high school students of the class of 2003, 30 students were actually graduated with the ceremony, with their diplomas in hand in June. That's 30 out of 150 students.
I go to Frederick Douglass Senior High School. At our school is a lack of a different amount of stuff. Things like computers, textbooks, and teachers.
The problems at my school is that we don't have a lot of books, or we have books, but they're no good. We don't have no computers. And some of the teachers in there just don't teach what they're supposed to teach.
You have the influences on the street that you have to constantly fight every day. You know, you have to have more of a drive, you know, to want to get up and take charge of your life and do what you want to do.
In a lot of ways, I am like those kids. I grew up like those kids did. I understand what it's like living in a household that has addiction. I understand meeting a relative at the train station to pick up his check before he spends it all on drugs so the rent can be paid. I understand not being able to sleep well at night because you're sharing a room with several other relatives, not your brothers and sisters. I understand what it's like where you can't really concentrate because there's too much stuff going on at home that you are the spokesperson for the household. So what I wanted to do was give to them what somebody gave to me, which had no futures program when I was in high school. But what I did is I had someone talk to me and encourage every single thing that I was doing.
He is more or less the only male role model that I've actually had in my life, because most of the people that I looked up to were women, who was my mother and my aunts. You know, they were the ones who supported me. They were the ones that always said, you know, you work for what you want. And I never really had a constant male role model.
Mr. Arnold help to me is good because he sit down, talk to you, he speak with you, help you out on your problems. He's just a good man. If I wouldn't have met Mr. Arnold, I would have still been acting up in school, not doing good, failing, not coming basically. But since Mr. Arnold has been helping me, he's been keeping me one step in front of another step. So I basically think that's good.
Your advocate is I've been telling you, don't come in the middle of the class when you have a problem, this, that, and the other. But when you really have a problem, you really need someone to talk to. For example, you can't talk to someone at home. You always have your advocate there. Your advocate, you always know that your advocate is there for you to talk to when you really have a problem. But they're not afraid to tell you when you just having petty issues. They're not afraid to tell you, look, go back to class or I will extort you. I really thank him for that, because if it wasn't for him, I would probably still be home today.
I think it is an obligation of black people to give back to black people. And it might not even be monetary. It could be being available. It could be reading a story to somebody. It could be helping out with a block association. If you can't do that, then contributing either your talent or your knowledge or something. This goes back to how I feel, need to heal a lot of the stuff inside of us before we can press on.
I think college students are, they're always the ones with the vision and the idealism.
Right now we got to make the most of what we can and learn as much as we can, because pretty soon we're going to be the workforce. We're going to be in the high-profile jobs, people who are making the big decisions.
There's a lot of sentiment of people that, save our great Constitution, and this is what brings us inequality, equality, and, makes us all equal, and it says in there all men are created equal and that kind of thing. But it's also important to realize that without all those extra Bill of Rights that were added onto the Constitution, a lot of us wouldn't be able to experience the equality that we experience today. But it was written for, I guess you could say, the land-owning white male. And without those amendments, a lot of the things that I take for granted every day, such as being able to get on a school bus and not being told to sit in a specific area, comes from the amendments as well. As I'm leaving Howard University campus and walking through the streets of Washington, D.C., I see that there's a huge gap that exists between those students that go to Howard University and are on the campus, and I guess you could say of a kind of privileged nature because they do go to a private college or a private institution, and then right next door to them may be students or that go to the local high school or local middle school or elementary school that have nothing. It shows a huge amount of inequality that exists not just, in the area of the Howard University campus, but throughout the country, where you can see that there's one group of people that is very privileged and they can afford to go to these private institutions. However they may do that, they still do attend. And then there's this other group of people that can't provide for basic needs such as health care, or even provide for education such as simple things as being able to buy their children pencils and paper. It's very interesting to see that on a daily basis because it's something that motivates me to continue to do what I do. Just to give a broader overview, I wasn't political at all. I mean, looking at U.S. government or things that happened in other countries around the world basically didn't come up in my mind on a day-to-day basis. And then there was September 11th. And I can remember one of the biggest things that sticks out in my mind is, during that day, a lot of the people in my class actually watched over and over again the World Trade Center being bombed, and that was the main topic of discussion throughout the day. And it wasn't like what you saw so many other places where people were like, oh, this is a tragedy that's happened and we feel so bad. It was more, well, we need to prepare for war. We need to go out there and kill everybody and just bomb the whole country. And it made me realize, how terrible that sounded.
On October 25th, 2003, 100,000 people demonstrated in Washington, D.C., and another 20,000 in San Francisco. There were also demonstrations in over 40 countries around the world under the banner "End the Occupation of Iraq" and "Bring the Troops Home Now." We also called for money for jobs, education, housing, and healthcare, and out for war and occupation. This turnout, which in Washington included people traveling from over 40 different states, from 150 different cities, was far beyond the expectations of the people here in Washington. So this movement to bring the troops home now is continuing to grow. It began as soon as the occupation began in April, and it's growing every day as Iraqi, U.S. and other casualties increases. So October 25th was a very powerful statement that the people of the United States oppose the occupation and want to bring the troops home now. And it was one step in building a larger and broader movement that has continued since that day.
As far as in the occupation of Iraq, that also had to do with inequality or a chauvinistic type of racism that existed, because one of the slogans that they've used for supporting the occupation of Iraq is, we need to be over there, they can't rebuild their infrastructure by themselves and they need our help. But to think that Iraqi people are not as intelligent as we are and can't rebuild their infrastructure the same way we can, that's based on an inequality of looking at people. So I think that was one of the major ways that had to do with the October 25th demonstration. And we realized that regardless of who it is, they're over there, they're occupying a country of people that do not want to be occupied. They want to control their own resources, they want to have their sovereignty, and they want it now. And so that was a major way that the October 25th demonstration was focused around inequality and not so much just one specific area. The reason why I joined Answer was because, started working with Answer is because it was great to me in the sense that it wasn't just about me understanding the issues, and because you can see that there exists a lot of people that may discuss the issues, but they don't actually go out into the streets and, affect actual change. It's more of a intellectual discussion between various people. In Answer, I saw that it wasn't just about the discussion, it was also about going out into the streets and doing something to affect change, not just, on a large global scale, but also in your community and in the country as well. And so that was I think that was a big thing that influenced me. If not, I think the most important thing that influenced me, because it wasn't just based about me understanding one view or the other. It was about not just understanding it, but talking to other people about it. Because what's the use of me understanding it if I know that my friend over here doesn't understand it, and I'm not going to talk to them about it, and I'm not going to invite them to, come and talk to me and talk to more people and to more people. Because change can't really happen by me sitting here and understanding something about myself. That's just me. That's not a whole massive community. And that's what it was about. It was really like, as I say, grassroots organizing, because it was, you know, a person-to-person contact that existed where I was learning more about the information, but then I could go out and talk to other people about it as well. So that had a major influence on me, as well as the demonstrations. I mean, naturally, demonstrations are an important thing, but it wasn't like I was just, you know, come to this demonstration and that's what it is. I come there, I see the great speakers, and I leave. Answer was also about getting people to become volunteers as well as organizers and work to build the demonstration and becoming a part of the movement that had grown up over the past year, and not just being a bystander in the movement, but actually becoming an active participant. So
I saw the best banner I've ever seen. 3 words: love or perish. And that is indeed the choice before humanity today. As Dr. King said, we must learn to live together as sisters and brothers, or we shall surely perish together as fools.
We need to do a better job of providing equal funding for schools and equal educational opportunities for all students.
They have that no child left behind, but there's no smart child left behind.
Education is a tool to help people to listen to you, to listen to what you want to change, to listen to your views and your values.
Yeah, I think we do have a ways to go still. I think as far as integration within schools, it's still very socially segregated because, you know, at least in Tulsa, after the race riots, it became segregated by geography, and schools are kind of following the same patterns. And I think the No Child Left Behind Act kind of enforces that, because schools that are underperforming due to the fact that they don't have as much money, or they're underperforming, and therefore if they continue to be underperforming, the government starts taking money away from them, which seems to kind of just defeat itself. And I think that continues to sort of entrench the problem of schools that haven't been integrated and are in like bad parts of town becoming more and more and more poor schools, and giving out worse and worse and worse educations, and then in turn turning out kindergarten students who can't go into first grade reading and so on and so on, and they get into high school and they can't go to college because they never really learned what they needed to learn. And I think that the No Child Left Behind Act kind of just entrenches that, and I think it's a continuation of that problem. And I think it's a symptom of the problems that still exist after the Brown versus Education Act.
In my very humble opinion, we've made progress since Brown. At least on a theoretical, if not a real level. And at least in terms of education, you know, there are opportunities and there are doors that are open that weren't open before. But it just doesn't seem like we are done yet. And in Virginia, there are still 2 separate school systems, which aren't necessarily divided by race, although they often are. They're more divided by class and income.
Legal argument. The disparity between the wealthiest jurisdictions and the poorest jurisdictions throughout Virginia is staggering. Virginia provides at the state level a certain level of funding, and then the counties supplement that funding to whatever degree they deem appropriate. And the percentage of supplemental funding from the counties ranges from 4% to 232%.
And, you know, the Commonwealth of Virginia is, I think in terms of per capita income, is the 12th wealthiest state in the Union. In terms of the amount of money the state government contributes to public education on a per capita basis, we're in the bottom 10. In terms of the money that we contribute to children's mental health services, we're in the bottom 10. In terms of the money that we contribute or pay for corrections and police officers, which I look at as sort of the back end of the child care system, we're 3rd or 4th, and of the 50 states. And so it has become increasingly apparent to me that we have very misguided priorities in Virginia when it comes to how we treat young people And we spend lots of money to lock them up, and we spend far too little to make sure that they can be successful in their community.
They say, this is the pot of money we have this year to give to education. We'll split it up this way. They don't say, how much does it cost to educate our children? We'll find the money, which is what a lot of states across the country are starting to do. The school funding is becoming child-driven rather than budget-driven, and Virginia hasn't got on that bandwagon yet.
You get so caught up in your own world up here around in the Washington metropolitan area. You know, I personally have a child in the Arlington County, Northern Virginia public school system, and the resources are amazing. And it's as much as many independent schools have throughout the country. It's a terrific resource, and it's why people move into these neighborhoods, because the public schools are so good. And I was frankly blissfully ignorant of how horrible the conditions are in many of the public school systems throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Until we make sure that all of the kids not just get an equal opportunity to school because they're all in school, but get an adequate opportunity to benefit from their schooling and be successful, I don't think we'll get to where we need to go. You know, the definition of sort of youth and adolescence, or a defining characteristic, is that you make stupid decisions. And there are kids in some communities where it only takes one bad decision and the bottom drops out, and it's really hard to recover, whereas kids in middle class or upper middle class communities can make 100 bad decisions, and there's always another school for them to go to, or there's a counselor for them to talk to, or there's another opportunity for them to sort of pick up the pieces and start over. And so I sort of, my general sense of why I wanted to go to law school narrowed as I was doing this work with these kids, and thinking really what I wanted to do was try to create more safety nets. The Commonwealth of Virginia pays $70,000 a year to keep a kid in a locked juvenile prison. You know, the average amount of money that we spend to educate a child in Virginia is something like $8,000 per student. Kids who succeed in school don't end up in locked facilities. We've worked with a number of kids, though, where the state, because the kid was not in school when we first started working with them, or wasn't getting served appropriately, where they might have been court involved, and the court and everybody else was saying, let's lock this kid up. And we would get involved and get the child back in school, get them hooked up with whatever they needed to be hooked up with, and then they ended up doing fine. You know, graduating from high school, playing on sports teams, contributing to their schools and their communities. And this spring, which will be the first time, the SOLs were implemented, I believe, in 1998. And that's when students started to having to pass these tests. And they're administered in the 3rd grade, the 5th grade, the 8th grade, and then throughout high school. This spring, for the first time, kids will be denied diplomas if they don't pass 6 SOL tests during their high school years. There's some exceptions to that, but they're very marginal exceptions, and really for our purposes, we should say if they don't pass 6 tests, they're not going to get a diploma. The crazy thing about the way that Virginia does this is that the schools that the kids attend don't have to meet state standards for another 2 or 3 years. So that you could have kids who are going to schools that everybody knows don't meet state standards, and it won't make a difference. The kid will be denied a diploma this spring, just like a kid who goes to a school that's passing state requirements with flying colors. And state standards are essentially measured by the percentage of kids who pass these tests. Those kids, if they don't pass all 6 tests, aren't going to get a diploma. If they don't get a diploma, they won't be able to join the military, which was often a way out for families and kids, you know, in low-income communities. They won't be able to apply to 4-year colleges. There's now going to be this tiered system, and if McDonald's says we want you to have a high school diploma, they're not going to be able to get a job there. If, be a truck driver, auto mechanic, whatever it is. Lots of employers require high school diplomas. These kids aren't going to be able to say they have one. What we now call Just Children, which was a program, again, designed initially to make sure that the many needs of court-involved kids that often contribute to them getting involved in the court in the first place were met, so that kids could stay in their community and be successful. And over time, we've added lawyers. We've started a child advocacy clinic at the University of Virginia Law School, so every year we have up to 16 law students working with us on cases. We now have offices in Richmond and Petersburg, which are two of the cities that are most challenged, I suppose one could say, when it comes to making sure that all their kids are being successful. We have a community organizer. We do a lot of training and capacity building, not just with parents of low-income families, but with lots of professionals who work with low-income kids and low-income families. We get a significant amount of grant funding to train foster care providers, so social workers and therapeutic foster care providers, to help them become more effective educational advocates for the kids who are in foster care. We've done survey work with them after the training to measure whether the training makes a difference, and the feedback we're getting is really remarkable. And hundreds of kids are getting improved educational outcomes as a result of giving people information and tools to be more effective advocates.
If there are heroes here, it is the Andy Blocks of our profession that wear that hat.
One of the things that's amazing about our country is that even on its worst day, when promises aren't being kept, there's still the opportunity to make things better. And my sense was, that's what being a lawyer could be about, would be making people keep their promises.
What I see as the role of college students today is taking a more active role in the education of students. Getting out there and staying involved in the schools and in the neighborhoods to make sure that they're teaching the kids what's already been afforded to them as far as education is concerned.
I think arts plays a big role, even if you look at something like the Harlem Renaissance, when minorities, especially African Americans, were given a chance to show their abilities, and it brings people together. Arts, music, things like that. It's a form of entertainment, and when people are entertained, they're more likely to come together.
There are so many intricate levels of happiness and sadness that sometimes my mind becomes overwhelmed.
Arts activism steps in the middle, in the forefront of a battle, and brings beauty to it.
Hell-bent on dissecting reality and purifying fallacies that my left and right hemispheres constantly drift in and out of my conscious galaxy.
I'm going to make something beautiful so that people who normally won't march, won't attend a rally, won't engage this any other way will come to a play and say, well, but you know what, that play, I understood.
Identifying and addressing, changing, rearranging different colors and levels and peaks of emotions. My body just reeks of conscious commotion.
For all of the negativity that the commercial industry wants to toss at us, we're bouncing back with something that we know makes a difference.
So my pear glaze permeates my pearly gates, and that bittersweet quest for knowledge tiptoes and toe dances on that thin line between love and hate.
Because that's what we do. Stand up for each other.
Arts activism is a way of taking arts process and practice into a specific social, political, or even spiritual battle.
These hands, my hands are uncovering no prophecies and laying bare no prayers.
And Roxy just seemed a natural. I've known Roxy for quite some time.
I love making eye contact with people and know that I'm reaching them.
One of the things that Roxy has is this buoyancy.
The overseer's voice has become the voice of our sons, our fathers, our husbands.
But I'm still here. I'm still here.
I wanted to save him from his own history.
She's got this extraordinary physical presence that you just don't miss. You notice her, and you notice her because she shines, and she's this chocolate girl who shines.
I think I see that I make a difference most when I'm working with children. Gettings Fashion Institute. It's a school for girls. And they learn dance, modeling, or posture, diction, and things of that nature, how to carry themselves, and how to be comfortable in themselves.
Girls come here and feel that they're comfortable, they have a home, they can come here and talk, they can relate to an adult that's a young adult that feels comfortable with what their concerns are.
Self-identity and self-acceptance is our biggest problem. We're never allowed to be completely comfortable in who we are. Showing them, exposing the person that I am to them, and hoping that they see something cool in this woman, that they may want to, find a way to do that in their life, or something that they see that they may want to emulate in a sense. That's how I bond with them.
A lot of times girls don't talk to their parents about their concerns, but in the charm and modeling program they can sit down and talk about anything that's bothering them, and then we offer positive constructive criticisms to help them deal with those situations. I met Roxy about 10 years ago when she was a young girl. I love her passion for life and her zest for people. I thought Roxy would add a lot to the studio. She's younger than some of the teachers we've had in the past, so she can relate to the girls. They get to see what dance is on a college level as well as a professional level. She brings a lot of positive attitudes and confidence and enthusiasm, and I think she's a dynamic young person to work with these young girls.
Art really is to add color and spice to life.
The art relates to everything that they do in life. A lot of times girls are nonverbal, or people rather express their feelings through movement rather than through words.
Art is so exciting to me, and I think it's exciting to most people. Colors and movement and music and sound and gesture and all that other stuff, it just excites people. And excitement, it drives you to do something.
That is the role of art in society, overwhelmingly, to speak to what a community needs.
To connect, to communicate through something that's exciting.
How does a community translate its own identity, its own desires, its own fears, its own hopes into something beautiful, into something that says, yes, in spite of whatever it is that we're going through, this is what we can become.
I think it's important to be able to embody new people and new experiences so that you can spark new thoughts and new ideas. And from those new ideas and new thoughts come new things, better things perhaps, hopefully. And from that comes change. And from that will hopefully come a world that is far different from what we know now. You see, knowledge of self is like life after death. Deeming one's self-knowledge the eternal quest. But don't stress, because sometimes one must be comfortable not knowing and just growing. Comfortable living and learning and loving and earning and hurting and discerning. Feel me, because my heart is burning yet my mind is still yearning. I do have the tendency to run with what I feel intensely. So if in this dialogue you missed me, just catch me afterwards and we'll burn one and probe the infamous intellect until the next sun sets.
Well, I think historically that the church played a very important role for the African Americans in the civil rights activities, because much of that came out of the churches.
Churches are where we were able to meet and talk and have the sanctity, of protection. We've gotten away from that today.
What Brown versus Board of Education says to me is, this is what officially was done. And since then, this is what needs to be done without the law, or despite the law, to make true equality a reality for all persons in this country. And so when I look at Brown versus Board of Education, it's good theory. And we still wait to see it put into practice practically for the majority of persons of my community who are still disproportionately disenfranchised.
Can I just preach till I get happy tonight? I don't care if it's racism, I don't care if it's sexism, I don't care if it's ageism, I don't care if it's haterism, whatever the name of your trouble is. I don't care if it's depression, I don't care if it's disease, I don't care if it's death, whatever the name of your trouble is. I don't care if it's low self-esteem, I don't care if it's sleepless nights, I don't care whatever the name of your trouble is. God is still God, and God is still over your trouble.
I don't believe in happenstance, and I don't believe in chance. I think that there are any number of vehicles and tools that are built within our political and economic system that that can keep any number of persons down. Particularly, obviously, we have a very overt history in this country of being discriminated against, and one does not arrive at a certain date and time without a history.
Certain troubles and certain circumstances that I'm fighting now that did not start now.
From a societal level, there still are redlining issues, there still are inequities in terms of educational systems, where it's obviously just resources that are allocated to one school system are not on par with another. Obviously, that is due in large part to the taxes paid by those locales, and obviously if there is historical discrimination towards one group, then that group has not had the advantage of amassing the wealth that will allow them to afford the houses, that will allow them to pay the taxes, that will allow their children to get better education. And this is not new, this is not rocket science, but this is an indication of the lack of political will of the majority of persons in this country to deal squarely with this issue.
All right. Well, what's your point, preacher? My point simply is this, that sometimes you got to understand that the fight that you're fighting is not for your today, but this fight is for your... It's deeper than just losing some sleep tonight, but your future is on the line. Your destiny is on the line. Your purpose is on the line.
While I was at undergraduate school and then as a graduate student, I served with Dean Richardson at the Andrew Rankin Memorial Chapel. And that for me was, again, a tremendous learning experience and opportunity because it provided for me, again, a new lens on this profession, this vocation that I'd entered in upon. It allowed me to see that there are communities that are not necessarily church-based, but may be grouped by another affinity, in this case, an educational institution, and how to minister to persons in a different environment. I view my calling to ministry as my calling to the community. I was brought on board at Reed Temple by Dr. Lee Washington, who is the senior pastor here. And it's just been the best place for me because it's given me the opportunity to do a number of things community-based. So we provide for tutorial programs. Also, we've reached out to the colleges in the area, Howard in Maryland and Bowie State University. We're also able to bring students over from the church over to South Africa last year, and we did some support for AIDS ministries there, library.
Reverend Watley gives not only me but a lot of people inspiration day to day from going every Sunday, just to know that there's something more than going out and doing everything else.
We had to compete with the other institutions which were already competing for the time and attention and energy and enthusiasm of the students, and that was the clubs and the parties. And I remember in undergraduate school I was no foreigner or stranger to those environments, and so I remember getting my color flyers and the glossy flyers and well printed, and the free shuttles that were sent to the campus to take us down to wherever we didn't need to be. And so what I said to those who are shaping the ministry with us was we can do no less than what the clubs are doing. And so we need to get some professional flyers done, and we need to provide for transportation. And I remember being in college wanting a good meal, so we should throw that in too. And so the Lord is blessed, and the ministry has grown tremendously. I'm not sure, quite frankly, if it's the singing and preaching or that great food that they're serving, but we're happy to have the folks either way, because I do think that from the response that we've gotten, that people are being affected and are being fulfilled. And so in the course of almost 5 years of having preached this service, we've grown from 30 to about 600 meeting on every Sunday.
Reverend Watley, I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he's not old. Like, he's still in touch with the society, not the society, but the young and youth and young adults that come. He can talk about it and preach about it, preach from experiences, and not only does he understand, but it's understood by the saints that come. So he just breaks it down. I mean, sometimes he's breaking it down with, he brought R. Kelly and 50 Cent into the sermon sometime, and that just, grabs attention. You can't, it's so many things, and especially different churches, it got the older folk, and that worked for them, but this is a new generation that we're working with now.
He has a very unique way and distinctive way of relating the biblical text to our modern day vernacular, so that we understand it and we get it, and therefore we're able to learn from it, you know, because he relates it to what we do and how we live.
Statistics say that as an average 18-year-old black male, you're supposed to be dead in jail or selling drugs. And not only is he not doing that, but so many others aren't. And media doesn't show that. So here we have somebody who's preaching and doing the right thing, and he gives everybody else the inspiration to say, look, you know, I'm a testimony. I've been doing some other things. However, you don't have to go that route at all. So in my instance, instead of making myself, you know, because I had many and plenty opportunities to go off on tangents and do everything else that was ungodly, but I look at Reverend Watley and my pastor at home and my father and things like that, and I look at that and I see, you know, they messed up, but I don't have to go right there. And people looked at me when I accepted my call and was like, Dad, Kevin, you're only 19 and you're preaching. Isn't it a lot on you? And it's a lot on me. However, I know I can fulfill that, everything God wants me to, because I have people like Reverend Watley in my life who says, I've been there, but you don't have to go that route.